Welcome to Jar of Genius. I'm your host, Russ, and this is a podcast where we dive into the business of creativity. Each episode, I'll explore the minds and stories of innovative leaders and companies who have paved the way and are shaping the future for creative businesses around the world. From groundbreaking business models to extraordinary creative campaigns and the innovations of technology we use and will use ahead, I'm excited to help you not only run a creative business, but thrive in this ever-changing and always challenging landscape. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Jar of Genius. I'm your host, Russ Perry, and today we have someone that the last time I saw him, I was wearing swimming trunks, boarding a boat in Peru after one of the craziest weeks of my life. I'd like to welcome to the show, Hamilton Souther. Hamilton, thank you so much for being here today. I don't even know, what's your title? Like, what is you have like 7 businesses, you're so accredited across so many things. What's your one title?
I think polymath.
Polymath, okay.
I think polymath at this point. I'm a trained master shaman, a visionary artist, entrepreneur, founder, and humanitarian.
I love it. So, quick backstory of how I got connected to Hamilton. I have a lot of friends in personal development spaces, and we were sort of chatting about challenging ourselves down a new path. And my friend, Matt Blanton, who is like a 11,000 out of 10 in the fact finding index, he said, this is where we want to go. And it was the Blue Morpho experience in Peru. And it was, for me, just sign up and do no more research. That's all I did. I just signed up. I didn't research anything about it. And this isn't a story about my journey or trip. This is just an intro of how we got connected. But, many months later, I was on a boat to your facility, literally off the Amazon jungle, in which we participated in an extraordinary week of 4 ayahuasca sessions. And it was intense. It was unlike anything else, which I'm sure is like, your feedback form gets a lot of that. But I wanted to bring you on today because I have a lot of conversations around creativity. And I thought, man, who would be a more interesting person to talk to than someone who has quite literally met and talked to and experienced and seen all aspects of creativity, from the people, the visions, all of those types of things. So where should we begin, Hamilton? Like, what to you is creativity?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think to start with, creativity is a union where you are part of the universe, and the universe is this creative essence that's still mysterious to us. And it bursts forth through us in really amazing ways, very much like how you can extrude shapes through templates. Mm-hmm. And we are that to the universe. And so it's at this great place of union where something new can emerge. It's not just the same thing repeated over and over again. And in that newness, you get to invent and be that source of that creation. I think it's like a direct union with the universe or source, or what some people would call God, and a place where your true natural intelligence comes out of you. And I think the beauty of it is that it's something that's never been done before. And that's not just for you personally, but also for the earth and for the universe at that moment. It's this constant newness and freshness. And when you tap into it, I think it's one of the greatest experiences and feelings in life.
So let me try to reprocess that. It's almost like creativity is an essence. It's out there, and we're the interpreters of it. We bring it through us, and then reimagine it, reinterpret it, use that power, energy, ideas, inspiration to then make something new or create or make more. You use the term creator, and I think a lot of that is like creativity is the act of being a creator.
Exactly. A lot of people wanted to present me with a story that the universe was this vast emptiness. And in that vast emptiness, there's this little pocket of light and life. And I think that's just furthest from the truth. I think that was just such a bad narrative that someone used creativity to actually generate. I think the whole universe is creative.
Yeah.
Like, I think the space between you and the air around you is creative. I think like there isn't anything that isn't creative about the whole universe. And the more we find about it, the more we talk about it, the more we come to a more like understanding that that's the way that it is. And we're just really special as humans because we have imagination and we have the ability to think and use language and understand design elements and mediums in which to express ourselves. And so that just gives us this vast repertoire and cornucopia to tap into to be able to be creative and channel and express that essence of the universe itself.
So when you hear this, I don't know if you've heard this, I've heard it a lot in my space. I'm not creative. Like, what comes to mind when you've heard that statement? Like, I'm not creative.
Well, I think what happens is that little kids are all super creative, but it doesn't mean that their creations have a lot of greater social or economic value. But to the parents, man, it's the greatest value of all. Like their little doodles and
drawings. Yeah.
Like they're going to save all of those things because of the beauty of that creativity. And so I think what happens, sadly, when you hear somebody who expresses themselves that way, it means sometime in their early childhood, they got stripped of that kind of thinking and really focused in on a certain kind of, both thought and kind of study in school. And so they got channeled into either more math and sciences or really logical forms of thinking. Now, especially in like the last generations, the computer code and, Boolean algebraic ways of understanding if-then statements and this kind of logic matrix that people are thinking through. And so I just think that they've lost the identity of their creativity and they've taken on the identity of the opposite of it, which is like not creative. And I would say that you actually have to be extremely creative to maintain that narrative because the universe doesn't want you to keep doing the same thing every day. So you got to like really figure out how to do the same thing every day, how to build that routine, how to like wake up at that exact hour, how to do it exactly the same way to make your coffee in the morning. Like, I think that is so creative to how you ultimately treated the rest of life to say that you're not creative. But I think it's actually kind of a sad thing because it's just not true. You take somebody like that into an ayahuasca ceremony, and as soon as the part of that fixation in their mind of not being creative goes away, they have incredible imagination again, incredible visions. And so it's just a quality of somebody that hasn't used that part of them for a while.
So you brought it up, and I think it's probably good to the audience because I have an assumed level of knowledge for people when I talk about ayahuasca and plant medicine, but I know there is a lot of, I wouldn't say misinformation, just lack of understanding and knowledge about these things, either through pop culture or whatnot. You are a master shaman, you are trained, you are an educator, a facilitator for ayahuasca. Can you give us like the 2-minute, like what is ayahuasca? And in your mind, your perspective, like what is the reason why people refer to it as medicine and use it in this sense?
Yeah. Ayahuasca, first of all, is a tea. So like make it really simple. It's a tea and it's made from plants, just like the way you make any other tea. You boil it for a little longer than most other teas. And you need to know the ratio of the plants that you're using to be able to make it, and a pretty simple recipe. And the tea itself has psychoactive plants that are part of it. And so you can make lots of kinds of psychoactive teas. And in this case, there's a vine that has many names. Its scientific name is Banisteriopsis caapi. And that's what people call ayahuasca. And it means the vine of the soul or the vine of spirit. And there are other traditions that call it yahe. So some call it daime. There's a bunch of names for it. And then there's a leaf from the chacruna tree, which is a relative of the coffee family, Psychotria vidris. And that has dimethyltryptamine in it, which is a known visionary substance. Some people call them hallucinogens, although I don't, with the case of ayahuasca, I prefer to think of it as a visionary substance or a visionary medicine. Because there's a lot of truth and fact that comes through it, not just a distortion of your senses causing a kind of hallucination. So you have this tea, and the reason why it's considered a medicine is because the people in the Amazon learned how to use it for a variety of generalized healing necessities, illnesses, and then formed practices around it. And it's part of a bona fide system of Amazonian plant medicine.
Mm-hmm.
It's also considered a holy sacrament, a spiritual plant, something that connects you to the beyond your immediate senses. There's this idea that, the world of spirit or your soul is even like beyond this world. But I would rather think that, like creativity, it's an extension of this world. Mm-hmm. And those plants help you into that extension where you can tap into that awareness. And lots of things get healed with it. There are now proven Western psychological illnesses like depression and anxiety and PTSD and mild brain trauma. These kinds of different illnesses actually get healed from it. Many people have treated addiction and problems in their like habitual experiences with life. Other mm-hmm. people have found that it has a psychological effect that is like accelerated counseling. So there's mm-hmm. this aspect that's very much psychiatric. It's very much affecting your brain chemistry. And then there's another part of it through the journeys itself is very psychological. And it looks like people coming to deep resolution with things that were difficult for them, kind of being able to see all the skeletons in their subconscious going into their unconscious and open up a lot more of themselves to themselves. People mm-hmm. come to deep resolution about just pain and suffering that they've held on to in their life. And in many cases, people have identified with aspects of themselves that just aren't helpful. Like they think, I'm not a good person, or I'm not creative, or all the I'm nots. And it can just blow people right through that to realizing they are creative and they are a good person and they do deserve their own forgiveness. And it's okay for them to open their hearts again. So I mean, there's all those things associated with it. And then I think the final thing, which is really mysterious and amazing, is the psychosomatic illnesses that we don't understand in Western medicine yet. That when those are transcended, the illnesses just disappear. Yeah. And so people who have a psychosomatic illness can heal it very quickly with ayahuasca. And it's one of the few substances in the world known to be able to cause that. And so for all of those reasons, it's known as the medicine.
What would be an example of a psychosomatic illness?
A lot of people have gastrointestinal issues that really are caused by the state of mind they're in. Some people have skin issues that are caused by the state of mind. Pain, phantom pains in their body.
Shaky leg syndrome?
Maybe. Yes. Yeah, could be. Absolutely. Shaky leg syndrome, nervous system disorders.
It's incredible. I mean, I have to imagine you reflect on, I mean, you are, I believe you were 23 when you first went, into this journey, although you didn't start straight away into it. I've read your books and they're like a fantasy novel. It's insane. If anyone wants to read some crazy stories, go down Amazon and get Hamilton's two biographies. But it was a different world then, and I think that like there is a favor of the changing of perception that's happening right now with a lot of these types of spaces, which used to be really either ostracized or fringe or whatnot. How have you seen, like, what do you think is driving that evolution, especially over the last 3 or 4 years?
Humanity is driving what's taking place. And, I know that sounds axiomatic, like, of course it's humanity, but you got to go to the idea, though, that for the last thousands of years, humanity was in small pockets, isolated with large geographic distances between them. Mm-hmm. And so we had this regionalism taking place globally. And so we didn't have a bird's eye view on humanity's evolution together. And that's why you see these cultures from around the world from, 1,000 years ago, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, have all the same things needed for life. Right. They all have all the same things, but it's all different. The art's unique. The mythology is unique, but similar. The mathematics that sits behind their cultures is similar. And there's even phenomena where the civilizations within hundreds of years developed the same mathematical innovations. So, there's this like similarity to the evolution of people, but then this also great difference or great uniqueness. And now, especially in the last 20, 30 years with information technology and the expansion of globalization, we have this one world culture that has flavors within it, but not isolation anymore. And so during that period of time, what before were ostracized aspects of society have been now brought in under that bubble. And as people have needed from those aspects of society a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more, there's been expansion and awakening in that place. And in the case of the Amazonian plant medicine, and particularly ayahuasca, and it's a great honor that I got to participate in it. It was that we recognized as pioneers down here that there were mental health benefits associated with the plant at the exact same time that there was a huge mental health crisis taking place in the United States and Western Europe. Right. So it was at the exact same time. So we saw the proliferation of Prozac and then SSRIs. At the exact same time, we went and discovered these different plant medicines that happened to be great solutions for many people. And so need drew what was a fringe concept kind of into a more mainstream understanding. And then with that, there's been the growth from the neo-shamanic revolution into the psychedelic renaissance or third wave of psychedelics. And that really has brought forward even deeper understanding of the needs within our culture to have a greater depth to the understanding of our consciousness and its importance on our mental health. And so I think all of that combined shows how this like one world global view is taking place and an acceleration of evolution in this kind of information technology driven cross-culturalization.
Yeah, and I think too, like if you think about everyday products, everyday consumer products, there are so many brands and experiences that have grown extraordinarily fast through word of mouth, through recommendations, through, hey, this is awesome. I love this. I don't know if you have a Vitamix blender there in Peru, but that thing, the best blender you've ever owned in your entire life, everyone I know has just got one because someone told them it was amazing. Now you imagine something as simple as a consumer product having such amazing impact and virality. And then you have something, which I am a testament of the experience and the impact and the positivity it's made in my life, that's changing people at such a core fundamental level better than their smoothies being smooth. You can only imagine how easy that has been then to also ride those same waves of virality recommendations. And I'm curious, like of the people who come to you, what percentage of them are referrals or people who knew someone who came already? I could imagine it's a decent number. Yeah,
it's a lot. Word of mouth has driven like the most of the expansion. And then I would think of like the word of credible people online still putting out content about it, leading then to people to go hear about word of mouth, like bringing it up in conversation. When I started, the word ayahuasca was unknown. Like I know that some people knew of it around in different places of the world, but I was in Silicon Valley and no one talked about it that I knew of there. And now everyone talks about it there, you know?
Even think about it. I'm like, I don't know if I talked a lot about it with my company, but here's my company podcast and we're going to talk about it. But hey, it was legal in Peru. So there we go.
It is. And, and there's a lot of ways to be able to frame that are all positive.
But I just say, thinking about it, it's like, I think that technology, while there are many books and studies on the isolationist effect of what has been created and people being behind their phones and this and that, I think it actually, for things that matter and impact in people's lives and experiences like this and other things, it actually is an accelerant to continue to champion those and continue to grow those.
Yeah, I agree with that. The individual experience compared to the collective experience is always evolving. And there's a critique back to a social norm that doesn't really exist. It's a fantasy inside people's imaginations that your parents were supposed to be some way and you were supposed to know your neighbor and get a cup of sugar from them when you needed it. Not that drones were going to drop the sugar from the sky and like come deliver it to you. But in reality, everything has always been evolving and changing, including the way that we understand each other and interact. And I think one of the powerful aspects of that is in this globalization, actually having contacts and people that you know from all over the world.
Yeah.
And so, it's for us, even here in the Amazon, it's hard to believe, but in any given work day, we'll talk with people in 15 countries.
Right.
And so, when you think about what that has done, it hasn't limited the nature of our interaction at all. It has accelerated the expansiveness of our interaction. And at some point, I think there will be a greater balance between what's the digital online experience and what our in-person experience is. But for that to happen, I also think there has to be a cultural evolution that makes in-person experiences more comfortable and more enjoyable than the way that they're currently presented. It's not just that the devices take away your desire to go interact with people. It's that interacting through the devices is actually more enjoyable than typically going and interacting with the people. And so I think we need to have an interaction that's more enjoyable, and we have to come to some kind of conclusion about that. And it's just a phase that we're in. I don't think people remember that this has only been going on for 30 to 40 years. Humans been going on for at least 1 million years. Like, we can't take such a narrow understanding in time. And, a good example of this could be with the inclusion of AI, that 95+% of the tasks that people do online today will be automated within 10 years, maybe even 5 years. And so now you won't be doing those things online that you are doing now that's isolating you, because the machines will do them themselves. So now what are you going to do?
Now, I want to touch on that. It's near and dear to my heart. We get asked all the time because we're in a creative space, and a lot of the early concept of AI utilization is creative content. But, personally, we find that there's still a process, there's still people involved, and we're going to be the place for that. Do you foresee a creative boom or a creative renaissance? Or I guess, let me say, what do you think the impact to creativity will be when, on one hand, the 95% of medial data-driven, those things that people have to do, will no longer be necessary. And then everyone has creator tools at their fingertips, like whether that's video, music, ideas, whatever it might be. Like, what's your sort of, put your futurist hat on here, and where do you think this is headed?
Yeah, I'm a utopian thinker and understand, then try to figure out solutions for dystopian narratives. So, will there be great disrupt? Yes. And will most of the digital things that are created today be created by machines? Yeah, of course they will. But then doesn't that free human creativity to become something that we just talked about earlier, which is completely unknown? The human creativity doesn't go away at all when the nature of how we created changes, right? So there are now, you could say the same thing when everyone made plates by hand. And then all of a sudden there's mass-produced plates. You would think well, are all the potters in the world gone? No, the potters went and started to create something other than plates.
Yeah.
Right. And then what happens with digital creators? Well, they're free to actually use those same tools, increase the nature of their creativity, think in ways they've never been allowed to think before. And a lot of the digital creation is repetitive. And so that really isn't that creative in its own right. It's a lot of just repetitive nature of work, and a lot of that can be automated. And then it opens up a new world. And, before Photoshop, what photography was very different, drastically different to what it was post Photoshop and digitization.
Well, yeah.
And I think the same thing will happen post AI. And then what that finally allows us to do is use creativity for something beyond that of just market economics.
Right.
And when you start to shift market economics to use creativity beyond that, who we are as a species gets unlocked. And we're not there yet. And I'm really looking forward to that day, because I think that that's finally when we get freed from a long evolutionary history where we had to use our creativity and toil combined to be able to harness enough energy to be able to keep growing as a global society. And we're right on the cusp of getting past that. And what comes is a great liberation, also great disrupt for what we created along the way, but a great liberation. And that is a true renaissance.
I love it. I think of a story around the cost of light, like the actual cost of lighting your home, and how energy got cheaper and cheaper in the 1800s. So where an average wage, there was an ungodly percentage, I don't recall what it is, I'll chat GPT later, of how much of one's monthly income went to fuel to light things. And as that got super cheap, the amount of income didn't necessarily change, but what you could then invest it in was diverse. And I think about time and energy as it comes to being a creator or creative. That's going to cost is going to go down, 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 and down, and down. So all of this time and energy, and it just not necessarily creative arts, but creating a spreadsheet, creating program, creating whatever. Now we'll have so much abundance of that. And ideas aren't going away. There's many more ideas than we ever have time to do and pursue. But now when that cost drives down, I think it's just going to be this flourishing of innovations that we've never even thought. And of course, we'll look back and be like, darn it, why didn't I think of that? That's so smart. But some guy now could do 50 ideas a day instead of one idea a month or whatever it might be to come up with it.
Exactly. And the acceleration on the way that we think will also evolve.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think that we can ever hold on to the past as the way it was. So that's the way it's supposed to be. It's just not the way of the earth. The way of the earth just constantly evolves and churns and changes. And so we have to always be ready to learn again and update. And I would like to just think that we could, in terms of a market economy, grow to a point where it isn't a hyper competition between everybody for success. Right. And so I think if we can make that leap, then what creativity becomes has a kind of joy associated with it and a freedom and a liberation that brings newness and freshness. And I think that's just really important for the species. So we've been, creating a lot to build the economy to a certain size and automate a ton of processes, but you'll never out-automate what humans can create themselves. There will never be a machine that truly mimics what a human is. A human is a very unique, miraculous creation of the earth and the universe, and it is a representation of constant creativity. So I just don't buy into the dystopian narrative that there's such a disrupt that our creativity gets taken from us. It's more like there's such a disrupt, we finally get liberated so that all of our creativity can be unleashed.
Yeah. I mean, I think it like you mentioned, it depends on the objective of the creation. If the creation is to sell an ebook, then yeah, maybe machines will be better than us. But I think the ultimate goal of human creation is to connect. And that will be uniquely human because that is driven through humans creating to connect with other humans.
Yeah. And I when I think of the future and I put my real future hat on, you have to look beyond event horizons where new creations and innovations happen that have never even been hinted at. So you think like maybe 10,000 years before the printing press or 5,000 years before a telephone. And somebody maybe had a concept like, oh man, it would be so cool to talk to that guy way over there, but you can't foresee what changes in the world when that becomes a shared tool. And what we're talking about are the tools of creativity. And there will be many new tools of creativity created that we don't even know about yet, and ways to create that we don't know about. I was just hearing recently a real patron of the arts, like a real philanthropist of the arts, talking about the nature of different mediums losing their real ability to move people over time. And he was saying that in his thoughts that the next great medium that art would be expressed through was the internal experience and space of an individual. Like knowing how the effect within an individual would be where the art is expressed. And I just thought, what an incredible idea, because before that, the art's always outside you. And it's somehow interacting with you. And now he had moved the art inside a person. And so, when I think about it from that perspective, I just think like we got to see beyond event horizons that allow such a large transformation for society that huge problems get solved. And one of them is the nature of the use of our creativity.
I love it. Did you ever watch the series Westworld?
Yeah.
The latter season, when the main character, the same guy from Breaking Bad, takes the drug and it creates an experience. He's like in a movie himself, and he's the only one experiencing it. He's the only one experiencing the art. I imagine that's either the future of one industry, like drugs, or another art, or maybe they converge, and that's what it becomes.
And they may. I mean, I just was on on our retreat. It was interesting. We were on a plant medicine retreat working with ayahuasca, which produces these incredible visionary experiences and a tremendous kind of art in its own right. And one of the guests brought a light that you just lie under and you close your eyes and it turns on a complete visionary experience through the nature of a strobing flashing light with your eyes closed. And you get a multidimensional internal mind space that's filled with geometric colors and patterns. you see fractalization, and you can have a real impactful experience through that. And I was thinking, well, that's a very unique kind of art. From the outside, it looks like a strobe light if anyone's looking at somebody going through the experience, but on the inside of them, they're having a very unique experience triggered by that light itself. And so I thought that really is a good example of this idea of the transference of art from outside to inside.
I love it. Well, look, we're going to start wrapping up. We started with the question of creativity, and we kind of ventured in and out of a few things. I want to bring it back to, really what your core gift has been to many people, including myself, which is facilitating and educating and teaching around what it is to really experience a new form of thinking and living and believing, and you do it in many ways. Ayahuasca is not the only one. I know you do it and in other ways and around the world. You said something that was like comically simple, and I loved it. You said, it's a tea. Ayahuasca is a tea. I'm curious as we wrap up, because I talk to people all the time, and it's sort of hard for me to articulate this. It's like, I feel like I need to really work on like how to explain things. But I know for me, one of the goals of this podcast is to encourage people to try new things and think in different ways and experience new things. And I could recommend what you do more. Obviously, everyone, disclaimer, do your research or whatever it might be. But I would love to know, as you are speaking with people who really have no concept of what this is, but might be, what is the ideal person for you to go down this path and kind of explore this world of plant medicine and ayahuasca? How does someone know, hey, maybe that's something that is on my path?
There's a concept of a calling, that you have a calling for it, but you don't have to make too much out of that. I think it's a recognition, right? It's not like, I heard a calling. It's more like inside yourself, there's a desire to just know a lot more about you and what's going on in the world. So part of it is about fixing things. So you may realize that you have something that you want to fix. And sometimes that's a kind of personal healing or personal growth and development, or a blockage, or you realize you have communication issues at work or personality conflicts. It can be pretty simple, basic things. But you just realize like you run up against that barrier numbers of times in your life, and you want some help getting past it in a way that is going to really support that. And sometimes people will look in their past and realize that they really are still affected by, their childhood or the relationship they had in their families, or, what it was like going through adolescence, et cetera. And they realize that there's aspects to their own personality that they would like to address. And then there are the people that are really looking to take their life one step further. Like they know that where they are isn't the ceiling for them. They know that there's something that they can improve upon. There's some other greater success available for them. There's some deeper purpose that they're tapping into that they would want to know more about. And I think that that's really an ideal person to come have this kind of experience, because you're already wanting to take that step and you just need some support and help to do it. And you'll realize through the experience, there are some things to work on and kind of sort out within yourself. Everyone has that all the time, especially when we're in a period of growth. And it's just accepting that one step in that period of growth. I was on a call earlier today, and we were trying to describe what we do. And I was saying, just like your phone, there's an operating system and apps. And every now and then you need to update the operating system. Yeah. So that all the apps work better. And I say, that's what we really do. We help you update your human operating system so that every app you've learned along the way can just work better. And so I think if you feel like, wow, yeah, I would love to be able to hit the update button on my OS, like your own internal OS, and that's what it really does for you. And come down and see us.
Yeah. And I will say, sometimes your calling is just your buddy sending you a link and saying you should do this. And then you find yourself uncovering so many things you never knew expected. And that was one of the most beautiful parts about my journey, was the unexpected, the unexpected growth and the unexpected parts of it. Well, Hamilton, look, I want to be respectful of your time. Where is the best place people can learn more about what you're doing and get in touch to follow the programs and the things that you launch?
Yeah, thanks so much. We have bluemorphotours.com. That's our website for our retreats. And then we have bluemorphoacademy.com, which is our school. And if you want to learn about all of this, get trained in it, you can. And we also have a mystery school. And then you can find me on social media on Instagram at Hamilton Souther Official.
Which you can see him making ayahuasca. There's some videos back in the day on there. You big bats and making the tea. All right, everyone. Well, Hamilton, like really super great to see you again. Last time I formally saw you in person was in October. Thank you for sharing the story. Thank you for hopefully inspiring some people to think differently, challenge them to get out of their comfort zone, maybe connect up with you. For everyone who wants to learn more, you can go to our website, jarofgenius.com, where we'll be posting all of our show notes and links and everything that for Hamilton. Hope to see you in person soon. I appreciate it again, Hamilton. Take care.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Jar of Genius, sponsored by Design Pickle. To learn more about the topics discussed, get access to any of the links mentioned, and submit ideas for future seasons, head over to jarofgenius.com. Now, if you enjoyed the show, you know the drill. A solid rating on your favorite podcast platform helps others find what we are creating and join the conversation. We'll see you next time, and never forget, creativity is your secret strategic weapon.